at some point. Okay.
Does he have to be here to review the minutes?
He wasn't present on the February 9th.
Okay.
So, but yeah, we're going to be back in the exact same position as we were last time. And because it was just
So
Karen, me, Susie, and Aaron. So let's hope Aaron comes to the
And if you don't, the minutes can wait.
so we can stack them.
Yeah, you can just, I mean, I can.
Why don't we just do a package? What do you call it? An omnibus, which at the end of the year.
Remember, it's the executive session minutes don't get approved until the next executive session, which is sometime a year later.
Yeah, right. I've done that. Okay, let's call I'll call to order the meeting of the Business Development Commission on April 13th at 6:34 p.m. Seeing as there's no one present from the public, we'll skip by item number 2. How many people were present at the February 9th meeting?
I was here. Aaron's here.
There's Aaron, but Aaron also
was
was
here.
here
No.
last week.
I want to say,
Was that?
Yeah, I'm looking
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah, we should like.
Right, I think you have Aaron.
Hey, Aaron, you with us?
I am. Apologies. I was trying to get in through the Teams app and it says I don't have a license for it with this email. So I'm in the browser version now. So apologies for being a couple minutes behind.
Ryan,
No.
Bill, Dave, and Karen. We're at the February meeting.
Say it again.
Ryan, Bill, Dave, and Karen.
Okay.
So
In February.
3 at the 4. That'll work, right?
Well, okay, quorum's 4. So we can't,
No,
that's,
for attendees, right?
You just have to have a quorum of people present to
Yeah.
approve the
Right.
minutes.
So
So
you
if you have
guys
a
can-
quorum
so we
present,
have,
and then a quorum of those present.
so as long as it's 3 or 5, we're good.
Right.
Perfect. I'm sure I will never learn those rules before I leave this post. But, okay, so we can then do,
I'll make a
we can
motion.
do both.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from February 9th. I'll second.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes from the February 9th meeting indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Okay, the ayes have it, motion passes.
Ryan, I'm abstaining.
Okay,
Yeah, me too, I'm present.
that will be noted in the minutes.
Oh, well.
Is it? Leaving that to you, Dave. If it happens.
We shall see.
We shall see. Yeah, that was another tricky thing about doing the minutes, is going back and seeing who said what.
Oh, yeah.
Getting all the abstentions in. My respect for you, David, not that it could get much higher, it did creep up a little bit more after. So let's take this opportunity now to take a look at the meeting minutes from last month.
Even though I'll abstain from this one, only correction is spelling of my name. Sorry about that.
No, that's all. And all I had to do is go into my email, type in your email address, and I would have seen it. But
Everyone gets it wrong, so it's fine.
Well, how did I spell it? Pizza or pizza?
Pizza.
I didn't do that too.
Yeah.
All those Italian vowels really confuse
I
me.
know.
1 or 2, and where is it?
Z's and vowels. No.
Does anybody else have any corrections or comments?
I will abstain as well. I was preparing the March meeting. Watched it online, but it wasn't here.
Okay, then I will entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from March 9th.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor of approving the minutes from the March 9th meeting indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Motion passes.
And I'll send both.
What's that?
I'll send both.
Okay, perfect. Okay. And my apologies publicly and privately for the misspelling.
That's okay. My name is still in the email, misspelled wrong on that website. And I'm now stepping down and it's still spelled wrong.
Oh, you're jumping my agenda.
So I know I get emails.
Okay, we'll hold the surprise for a little bit longer. Okay, so the next item up on the agenda is really sort of our continuing agenda item that we have been working on now for the last several meetings. I have been encouraged with the progress that we've made to this point. I certainly hope it's what the village manager had hoped to see, because it's a new process, I think, for most of us. But at this point, I think what we'd like to do is let's move that process along. During the last meeting, we had asked that that the commissioners and a subsequent follow-up email that we could take the table that we had put together with our goals on one side and our lenses on the other, with the hope of building some strategies where those two might meet. And I want to thank the people who had put the time in to put that out and give it to us. We've got 4 of them, which I think is enough meat to have a conversation. What our goal at this point is to come out of this meeting with this thing kind of done, this step. So I think we have all the material. We can sort of talk about which ones. Now, I don't want to discourage us from just kind of willy-nilly throwing everything in there. Let's sort of pick and choose, because to the conversation that we had during the last meeting, that there was concern about having too many strategies and sort of diluting each individual strategy, because at some point we're going to pass this on and hope that they do get accomplished. So it is okay if you want to pull some out or whatever. Let's try to get down to a couple under each lens goal combination. So at this point, I guess I want to open the floor to thoughts from the group as to what you saw in the ones that sample pieces that were provided. Did everybody notice that it was the different worksheets at the bottom with the different names? Okay. Sometimes I have customers miss that.
Here in the spreadsheet, right?
Yeah, it's in the spreadsheet, but for those who printed it out, obviously it looks like you guys got that. So at this point, I kind of just want to open it up to conversation and hear from the group. It really doesn't matter to me which way we start. If we start in the upper left and work our way to the lower right, or if we do scatter shot. But I would like at the end of this to kind of come out with a finished spreadsheet with goal strategies that we agree upon. So with that being said, I kind of open it up just to comments. So anybody who has,
I honestly was looking for a spreadsheet that kind of combined all of our ideas. That way you could cancel out duplicates. So everything would just be on one.
well, that's on me. So I didn't,
That's just the way my mind works.
no, I hear you.
Looking through it though, I mean, there are some common themes.
There are. I noticed that too.
I think the facade program is one. Charging stations tends to become direct throughout a lot of them.
Green space.
Yeah, my approach was not so much, I just put everything I had in my head down, knowing that we might only touch 80% of them. There might be some outer fringes, give other ideas to other groups within the village. But yeah, I don't know if we want to start with like just going down the line of beautification and sustainability and trying to highlight the big ones there.
So we'll start to the upper left then?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, let's do that. So, so it looks like in the upper left, we have, so facade program, I think is for sure, right? So I think we just hold that. I am gonna be keeping a master list here.
Okay.
Just basically editing. Okay, so for sure, facade program. Some of the other ones that are in that attract and retain business and beautification. David had mentioned design standards for new buildings.
Yeah, so one of the things, I mean, that could go down a deep road, right? But maybe there's a general framework for any kind of design standards to make new buildings, whether it's retail or commercial, fit kind of a standard profile, versus saying, you know, you gotta plot land, develop whatever building you want on this parcel. So like in downtown, for example, if we were to extend Main Street all the way to Allen Road, would there be some kind of common theme that we'd wanna, you know, say, for example, somebody wants to develop all stucco buildings, right? Now knowing that downtown, all facade improvement is going back to exposed brick, right? So there are some rough outlines that we should work on as a group to kind of formulate just a rough framework around that. That was one. And then other one is, it's small, but I think it matters, is more live plants in and around areas of business. So engaging with maybe a garden club, we've thrown that idea around a lot, you know. Greenery can add a lot to our ambience of the village. And I think as subtle as it may be to have trees, trees are still in our streets, our downtown block, right? I think it's gonna add a tremendous amount of just something to break up the you know, the hardscape.
Yes, well,
Yeah.
So is that, would that be more enhanced community's image, or do you think that the greenery is something that we use to attract and retain businesses?
I just think it's something that, it's a good point.
And just throw
Yeah,
that
no,
out there,
no,
as devil's advocate, not devil's advocate, but just,
Maybe it falls more under provide additional resources.
Does it have to fall under just one? Can it coexist in both of those?
Yeah, I think I actually might have it more than once, but yeah.
and it can, but well, Jay, how do you care if we have, because one of the things that we had talked about during the last meeting, and I'm not sure how important it is or how not important, is trying to limit how many things we put down.
Yeah.
In trying to keep the scope within, you know, something that's achievable. Now, having it in multiple is acceptable. I think that's fine. And we can do
This
that,
could be,
but-
and this I was always thinking as being other outside of EDC. This could be something.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, this could be,
Yeah, I think most of it's probably. will.
Yeah. this was an idea that if we want to engage with the community, it could be a way for. We've talked about this.
Or honestly, I guess it's the 6 or 1 half of this together. Do we end up trying to just pull out a set of strategies from here as a separate document from this? So we can't put it in 2 different boxes, so to speak, but then the group of strategies that we come out after that. I mean, I guess, because the way that Josh had originally had it was a list of goals and then the strategies underneath it. The lenses are just a tool that we use in order to, you know, try to develop those strategies. So I guess we can put it in both places. That's fine.
And the only thing I would add to that is that ultimately you're gonna get down to tactics. That's below the level of strategies. And so just keep in mind that you've got 4 different criteria, your goals, lenses, strategies, and then the tactics that become really measurable. And
Yeah, so that's probably a tactic. Or so.
yeah, that's what I was.
It's a tactic, but it fulfills 3 different goals.
What you could do is, I think I've used this term in here, call it the bag. If you have ideas for strategies or tactics that just pop up now, and you don't want to forget them, just make a list of those. And you can come back to them and figure out where they fit into this group. Okay. Josh, you wanna clarify a little bit where you were headed?
I think here, let me turn my camera on. I think, no, you hit the point. Maybe it was 2 or 3 meetings ago, I had sent you all kind of a basic structure of how a strategic plan generally works. And so after you had all developed the strategies that you all cared about, the next step, if you remember, I believe, was developing those tactics that we would then start attaching measurements to. So I think it makes perfect sense that talking about greenery and incorporating greenery could be a tactic, a measurable thing, right? I mean, you know, how many businesses have some kind of greenery in front of them is something you can measure that would then enhance the community's image, or it would be a beautification strategy, something like that. So I think that's the next level, kind of what I'm hearing from you guys.
Okay.
That's good. Yeah.
So it's good to keep track of those.
Yeah.
Maybe just keep a idea was.
And like, I had grows seasonal events throughout the village. That would be a tactic.
Actually, I'd probably call that a strategy, with the tactics being then the actual
The
events.
actual event themselves, okay. So do we have any other thoughts under tractor chain business for beautification? Because streetscape, which is more of a past tense thing, but in a sense,
These don't have to be new. I mean, you're basically summarizing what you're doing and.
Okay. Okay, so in terms of attracting and retaining businesses, and just in conversations I've had, I think streetscape is a massive thing under beautification.
Absolutely, that supports that whole.
As many complaints as we got on Facebook last year, everybody in the room today was really looking forward to the results.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Okay. Susie or Karen, was there any other? Okay, so it seems like that's done. David, new building stand. Okay, let's talk about that really quick though. The other thing that you had talked about, because I do think that's important, is about do we think a strategy that we want to recommend to the board and to the administration is that we should have a design standard for future expansion of downtown?
I think that's a great idea, David. They're in place for residential developments. Would it make sense? Why not? You get two different situations, I guess, the downtown especially, that's kind of what we're focusing on, as well as other commercial areas. Two different standards would apply, I would think.
Yeah.
A strip mall out on 72. You wouldn't expect this, it would be nice, but you're not gonna expect the same end result.
Right.
But if the downtown is continued or a new building is constructed on an open piece of land, would it behoove us and benefit and be consistent with what we're trying to do? I think absolutely, that's a great idea.
Yep, I think so too.
In the residential world, they have monotony standards, so that the builders are not allowed to build identical houses. I think you're talking about maybe the alternative to that, which is to try and get some, maybe not call it monotony, but some commonality.
And we could almost flip that too, in the sense is even install it in downtown, sort of grandfather the people who've already done the work. Even though most of them have already done the work, I think in line with the standards we would sort of like, but like even going forward is new, I mean, we kind of played around with that. Remember when we started streetscape and we were a little concerned that it would sort of, the paralysis of analysis where we'd have too many requirements that people wouldn't come forward, but to this point they have to apply. But I do think maybe even going forward, even putting it into the downtown, even the existing downtown, not even just in terms of the expansion is having more of a uniform look.
Yeah.
Because we did talk at length about that at the beginning. So, okay, I'm gonna put that down as a strategy. What would be a term for strategy? What would be a word or like a
Design standards.
design standards?
Because
You're
I
talking
think
about
that,
kind of an architectural theme, right?
yeah, because that can apply to any area we see growing. Downtown, other corridors throughout the village.
Maybe design standards for economic corridors.
Yeah.
There we go. Make it in marketing before this is all said.
I would specify the economic corridor of the downtown business district, because you don't want to include the mining economic corridor.
But we might at some point, so this is for the whole village.
Yeah,
This
so
is
like
sort of
Ellen's
the,
Corners, if that develops, we probably want to have some kind of standard there.
I was just thinking out by 20, stopping at gas stations and, how you can maintain a design standard there.
and I would guarantee everyone's gonna come and ask for a variance, but I mean, that would then be on the board's, whatever they think as to whether or not they want to allow for that variance. So, okay, design standards. Okay, I like that. And I think in a way that will attract businesses, and I think that it will show that, we're holding, in terms of retaining business, it will show current businesses, the message that we're invested in making sure that the beautification of our area is going to stay at a certain standard, and their business and their buildings will stay, it will not be compromised in value because of us. Okay, so diversify the local economy. Let's see, Karen and Susie didn't have anything. David, you said incentivize through programs to bring entrepreneurs for unique businesses to Hampshire.
Yeah, I mean,
Elaborate on that.
I feel like a lot of the developments outside of the truck stop have been centered around people that live within town, within Hampshire, wanting to invest and start up something brand new. right? I think if there's a way to foster that or incentivize that or encourage that, as to look at everything that's been meaningful in downtown so far. And that, because that's where most of the enhancement has come, and it's all been homegrown, like people within the village, right? So how do we foster more of that? If people within the village have business ideas or want to start something up, how do we incubate that? How do we incentivize that and bring it forward?
Could that also be in conjunction with the Chamber of Commerce, working jointly?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And I think then one of the pieces down the road after tactics is, according to the strategy, I think Aaron had identified it in the process is we'll sort of identify stakeholders, within the community that we're going to want to relay, some of these ideas and strategies and sort of get their buy-in and oftentimes their support. And I think that's a great point with the Chamber of Commerce. They'll be, I think, critical in that aspect. So, okay, cool. I like that. So I think just, from the EDS is we would like to incentivize entrepreneurs and, as an opportunity to sort of diversify the local economy as far as the strategy. So an incentive program, help foster.
Yeah, I don't know the best way.
Foster, incentivize,
Homegrown businesses.
Yeah.
So we actually even had a conversation not that long ago that Gene was looking into doing an incubator again. Gene Mayer had sent an email out to us. So there was a program. We didn't fit, unfortunately, but I think there's still a big need for that. And that's something that
I got a building just staring at us over there, screaming to be an incubator. We need an investor to take it on.
Right.
Okay, so David, you also mentioned this is where you said growing seasonal community events.
Yeah, so, with the festival block and everything, like that, is that a place for us to be able to host more events? Is it shutting down State Street between these two blocks every Saturday between Memorial Day and Labor Day, on Saturday nights, right? And host events and things like that. Car shows and, so right now we have Coon Creek, we have 3 or 4 village events, if I'm not mistaken.
Chamber/village
Yeah.
events.
By the way, we now have an events committee.
Oh, we do.
Yeah, Linda's kind of heading it up. Our village clerk and all the taxing bodies, the chamber, all the organizations are involved.
Oh, great.
And they're promoting new events and then they get together and actually the village and our new budget, we budgeted $1,000 just to contribute to those events. So a lot of them are like the parade that was for the Rose Garden. That committee put that together in a real hurry. So there's a really good group out there. And I do think that they're working together to promote all the different community events, regardless who the sponsor is.
It's great.
So that's bringing everybody together really well, I think.
Okay, that's probably.
But as far as new events go, anything new is gonna bring people to town.
Yeah.
Things like baseball tournaments, soccer tournaments,
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
And now with the new park over in Tuscany, we have some good facilities.
Yeah.
I mean, you might consider whether a strategy might be to bring sporting events to town, for example.
Along those lines, coming up fairly soon, one of the events that Linda was working on that she mentioned to me, among other things, was the Cinco de Mayo celebration in May. And they're gonna, I don't know if they're gonna block off the side street down on Washington or what, but they're gonna have like a food vendors, and I think they were talking about maybe getting some music, and it was just a discussion because the May 5th falls like in the middle of the week or on a Thursday. The discussion was whether they should move it to a Saturday or not, and I never heard what the outcome of that was, but they had a whole calendar of events. Linda showed me from now till the end of the year, and they hope to do recurring things much along the lines of what you were saying, maybe, organizing it, maybe making it a.
That's great.
Thanks. A woman's getting married and for her reception, because it's the summer, she's having all food trucks. So the whole reception will be around with food trucks, all different kinds of food trucks. I think it'd be fun to have a food truck festival. But that'd be,
Sure.
That's an idea, a food truck festival. You go to some events, we go down to the, Illinois winemakers, event over at, in Utica at, Starbuck State Park. And they have for 2 days, all, Illinois wineries represented, and at the same time have live music for 2 days, bands continuously throughout the day. And they had an array of high-end food trucks. And I was just like, wow, never really encountered that before.
Woodstock Square had one last year too,
Yeah.
that my wife and I went up to. There's like 7 or 8 food trucks up there. Yeah, no, I think it's a great idea.
Woodstock usually has 4 or 5 food trucks every Saturday for their
Do
farmers
they?
market.
Wow.
it's a good idea.
So I think that for a strategy, obviously, is to grow community events would be, I'm not, I guess I don't know where else it would go other than beautification, so I guess it fits there, and diversify local economy. We could certainly, put it there. That's where you had it right there.
Yeah, but that looks like it might be already covered.
Well, and I think this is gonna be a document, though, that we're gonna live with.
Yeah.
And so I think even if they're already doing it, we wanna keep it on there and say, hey, keep doing it, because that's what we think is probably, at least from our advice, what we think. Okay, cool. Another strategy is something that we utilized early on, was surveying residents. In terms of diversifying the local economy, I think we should, as a strategy, survey the residents on a semi-regular basis to find out what are they interested in seeing come to town.
Sure.
Because, it doesn't really matter as much as what we think as it does what the village board or whatever is the residents themselves think. So I think that's another strategy that I think would be useful in helping us diversify the local economy is, because I think the surveys that we've done in the past have been really good. Are there any other things, Aaron, I guess to Josh, not to disclude you as well, but that you can see adding in that space that might, another strategy that would sort of tie into beautification as well as diversifying the local economy?
Sorry, it helps if I come off of mute. So no, I was looking at commonalities across the 4 different spreadsheets and trying to see where in the diversify local economy one, and it seems like there is a trend towards how do we, and I don't know if this is a strategy, but purposefully target new types of business outside of our typical restaurant, bar type businesses for not just the downtown area, but I think in general. So I don't know if that would be a strategy, but like having a concerted effort for like how do we market to different types of businesses than we traditionally do, and still balance that with a need to just bring businesses downtown.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, here's a thought. If you develop the green space, you're gonna have more people on bikes. You could have a bike store to be a new person event. So I think some of our enhancements will then create more business.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly. I agree. I mean, there's so much opportunity. I remember the days when Ryan and I were cold calling every single company we could think of. But ultimately, if there's property or areas that we identify as, hey, this would be great for X, right? We could actually go out and attract and try and find out, like bike shop, for example. Get into biker clubs in the area and be able to try to, drum up, where do you guys go? What resources do you need? That's one that's big for us, where during the summer, bikes that travel through Hampshire, it's tremendous. I mean, hundreds a day, right?
And we're always, I ride with the group too, we're always looking for more biker friendly restaurants, bike friendly coffee shops and that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Well, do we, or can we use some of the strategies to build off of each other? So for example, in the facade program, can we utilize that program for a prioritization of diversification of businesses, that if you are a business in XYZ industry or focal type, there's a preference given for that type of a facade application versus a business that there may be a plethora of in that downtown area, right? Can you then start to have those incentive programs be geared towards not excluding any businesses, but be geared towards giving a preference for driving the diversification of business, or even diversification of business owners in the area?
Yeah, Aaron, one that comes to mind is what Huntley did with the Chevrolet dealer, and now it's a brewery, right? Thinking outside of the box versus trying to go and find a dealer to occupy that space.
Right.
It was like finding somebody else. We have a lot of unique buildings in town that are vacant or soon to be, or maybe at some point will be, that are just different, right? And could serve a number of purposes than they do right now. So, Aaron, I like that. I think it's good.
All right, so continuing on with the strategies then, from, a beautification to enhancing the community's image, those are kind of almost the same thing. Was there anything, we've got, obviously, develop the standards for the economic, that's a strategy. We'd like to develop some design standards for the economic corridors. We have that. Obviously, facade program and streetscape sort of tie hand in hand with the attract and retain business, to Aaron's point, to kind of occupy both spots. Is there anything else in terms of enhancing the community's image through the lens of beautification that we can think of, another strategy that will help us in that regard in terms of enhancing the goal of enhancing the community?
I think under design standards, the one I have for enforcing codes that maintains a positive community image, right?
So code enforcement.
Under design, yeah, and that could fall under design standards, right?
I had written down signage, getting our signs done.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention that.
Yep.
Okay.
I can give you a quick update. Mike Mayor Reed has been really pursuing Senator Stevenson community event sign over at Henpeck Park, and he got in the budget that was just passed by the state last week, $150,000 member initiative for the village of Hampshire for signage.
Good.
So that'll more than pay for that.
Sure.
And probably a logo on the village hall and hopefully the wayfinding signs as well. Yeah, so, and that was approved by the legislature. It's hard to guess when they'll actually release the money. It could be months, it could be years,
Right.
but the money's out there. So that's good.
That's great.
That's good.
After all these years, Ryan, we're trying to start to comment about getting power over there.
There we go. I like that.
But they won't put it there until we have a sign, so respects for the sign.
What park was that, Jay? The,
Henpeck Park,
where's that?
over by the marathon,
Oh,
State 72,
Okay.
where the little gazebo is.
yep.
That's great. Okay, cool. So I think in terms of, are there any other strategies that we could think of tying to provide additional resources to the residents that would sort of be in line through the lens of beautification? I mean, is it,
I was just wondering if there was ever, since we don't have an incubator space, would they do like coaching, the one-on-one, or maybe we have business people, yourself, Ryan, Aaron's in marketing. If you had a panel, and it could either be like speed interviews or maybe longer interviews, maybe at one of the banks, bring one of the banks in. It just seems to me like there's so much expertise in this town, and coaches and mentoring is such a big deal these days. If you could almost, I've been watching Michelle mentor Brandon with things like today they were both here. Right after the meeting, they're in the corner together. She's a successful restaurateur and he's just opening up his first.
Right.
So that kind of pairing together to me might be an alternative to brick and mortar incubator.
I would love to understand where people are at with an idea and what it takes to get here.
We got a guy with an idea right up there. Aaron, what does it take to get you out of your house into a building?
Not a lot. just scheduling ahead of time and
No, I mean, your business,
Yeah.
your hot sauce business.
to get it out. That's more of a
What kind of incentive would it take to get you to the next level where you would need a space and expand your business?
I think that just comes down to more of a strategic direction for that home-based business of, are they at a point where it becomes a full-time focus, or do they have enough sales to support ongoing costs? I think it's some financial education around, is this, at what point are you at a transitionary phase to say, I'm taking this from I also do this to this is what I do full-time, right? And I'm speaking more generally than myself, but I think you have to hit a certain financial threshold where that becomes your sole focus. And for many home-based businesses, they may already be there. And so I think that's where you start to talk to them about a transition from a home-based business into a brick and mortar, or more, potentially having shared spaces for people makes it an easier transition.
I don't want to get deep in the weeds here because we're definitely into tactics now, but it's occurred to me that if we were to reach out and ask for people, are you looking for help? Are you looking for space? Are you interested in expanding? I think it's Batavia or St. Charles where they have like stalls inside like a retail incubator, if you want to call it. I mean, there's antique malls like that all over the place. If we could find the people, maybe then we could put them together and find the space for it.
Well, and I think too, as a village, if we think about a strategy, Jay, it could be that going back to potentially like an educational series of what are the phases that an entrepreneur would go through, and how do you identify when you're ready to move on to the next phase, and what type of resources are available based on what phase of that journey you're in.
Right.
If we had 3 or 4 people like Aaron in the same room having that conversation together, they would all learn from each other.
Yeah.
I think,
And they're all together at all the outdoor,
Yeah.
chamber, farmers market and the outdoor markets. That's where I did all my Christmas shopping there last year.
yeah,
So they're accessible that way, or they're not even out of their house onto the markets yet to get them there.
I can almost see, and this again gets into the how, but if we have enough festivals on the main street, if we could take like something like the dollar store and divide it into 3 sections that could be open air during those time slots, where somebody, they're only using it for that day, and this way it's an incubator kind of space, but also a place for them to have like a shared, I don't know, something like that.
Like a vendor fair, but it's inside. And if you're having a festival on the block, you'd have more people going in.
I mean, it could almost be like 3 garage doors, right? That could just open up, and
That would be cool.
it could be
Mhm.
every weekend, it could be something different,
Mhm.
in there.
It's a great idea.
I don't know, but I really think the entrepreneurial business owner in Hampshire is something that is so unique to us, that could really carve a niche in terms of who Hampshire is, outside of just being national brands,
No, and it's been a passion we've had since, I agree with you 100%.
you can get that anywhere, so.
Well, I think a potential strategy is sort of sticking to under communication, under diversifying the local economy, can be somehow connecting all the home-based businesses here in Hampshire, whether that's through newsletter. I mean, again, past that would be tactics, whether that's a newsletter, whether it's someone, again, whoever the stakeholder that we think is whoever eventually is willing to take that on, is maybe go through these festivals and sort of get down all their names and create a mailing list or something like that.
Create a Facebook group just for that
Facebook group or something like that is, so I think a strategy would be trying to connect to all of our home-based businesses here in Hampshire as maybe step 1.
I like that.
Yeah. So I added that to the communication and diversifying local economy. Okay. Excellent. All right, fantastic. So Okay, this one was a little bit more difficult for me, providing additional resources to, we said two things, providing additional resources, and what was the other thing? To our residents, resources and it's the goal. Where's that goal? Document that.
I don't think of that.
That's what I put in the spreadsheet, but clearly I was short on notes. Yeah, I'm gonna go look at the. Oh, I know where it would be. There it is. Okay, so I mean, on that point though, what are some, I mean, do we have anything in terms of beautification, a strategy whereby we can offer more services to our residents? Is there any strategies that we can, I mean, in terms of beautification?
By services, you mean like retail services or village?
Just
services?
resources to our residents, like that's a goal is, you know, in addition to enhancing our image in addition to diversifying the local economy, in addition to beautification.
I have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Giving opportunities for people to volunteer within the village. Right?
Yeah.
Whether it's clubs, schools, churches, they all want to give back to some extent. Give them an outlet to give back. We don't have that right now. Right?
Well, a good example is Coon Creek. We have literally hundreds of volunteers.
No, I think that's another sort of passion, I think, that we kind of bantered around about is if we could, and I think it's a strategy in terms of, you know, providing more opportunities for our residents is, you know, a robust volunteer sort of program that can help with things like Coon Creek, that could help with, you know, where you maybe have, you know, a member of the community that has some skills or some, you know, some expertise and is willing to volunteer a little bit of their time and go on and take projects on or coordinate with all the different, you know, not-for-profits that we have in town, whether it's a Lions Club, a Garden Club, you know, but as a strategy to trying to offer more opportunities to our local residents. And here I'm thinking of the younger people, you know, that might learn a skill or might, you know, develop a passion towards something. But I think, you know, trying to come up with a more robust, you know, volunteer strategy. Because we had talked about, like, I remember Eileen Flurry and I talked about this really early on is, I mean, we could have gotten a bunch of volunteers, I mean, truthfully, and painted that horrible building, you know, we could have. Now, would it have been it would have been better what she ended up doing a year later with that, whatever green thing that she did, right? We could have gotten a bunch of volunteers, got someone who was in painting that knew the materials and knew the, you know, the material you were painting, the material you should use to paint, the prep work. I mean, there's people in town who have that knowledge. And if we could have just taken a swarm of volunteers, 10, whatever, 8, you know, with the proper guidance, yeah, there's some really cool stuff that we could do that really doesn't require the village maybe to go into their pocketbooks. Because half the time when the village wants to do something, we've got to pay. Now, I'm all for these kind of things, but it does pose challenges. Pay the prevailing wage. You know, you got to go through the bid process. You got to go, you know, and that just takes every project we want to do and then just jacks it up. But if you could sort of come up with a strategy of sort of taking on some of these things through a volunteer-based network, not only are you saving a little bit of money, but you're also hopefully bringing in some young people in your community that might learn some skills, maybe find that they enjoy painting. They enjoy doing carpentry work or something. So I kind of thought that was another, you know, kind of tag on to what you're saying. For sure.
One thing I've always, and I think, Ryan, you have it in here under sustainability, to partner with the local high school, like the art department, and have the students do murals. I just think that would get the students engaged, the parents engaged. It would beautify the area. I've always thought that would be.
I always think the north side of the dollar store.
Yes, me too.
Absolutely.
That could be a rolling canvas,
Mhm.
you know, that whether it's a Hampshire, you know, permanent or every 6 months.
Or the north side of the library and GABR. If you're coming from the north down State Street, that would be an attractive thing to see off to your left as you come over the tracks.
Be great for like.
Well, I love that idea too, because communities that have those type of mural programs, they generate organic virality and the ability for people, like people want to take their picture in front of them. They want to,
Right.
you know, it's like a, hey, I want to go around. One, they become kind of an attraction. People want to go see all the different murals in a town. But then often they take a picture in front of it and share it through their social. And now that inherently starts promoting the community without having it be a marketing campaign or a paid promotion, right? That it's just a natural thing that occurs. I love that idea.
I think that's fantastic. I mean, we have mentioned that a bunch of times. And I tell you what, the high school will be all over that, because I've talked to, you know, just teachers, because I've had kids there forever. No, I'm sure we could totally tap into them, and they're gonna have the materials, they're gonna have the expertise and the specialty, you know, and it would be a project for them to do, right? That is part of whatever their goals and objectives within their, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, it highlights the youth of our community too, which is great, right?
Yes.
And when you get the kids involved, then the parents automatically get involved.
And there's ownership
Yes.
and application for the village, which is great. Yeah.
Okay. So from a strategy standpoint,
Partnering with the high school.
yeah,
Or just allow opportunities for people to volunteer. And then that could be
That could be a
one of
strategy
the
underneath it, right?
elements underneath it.
yeah, that could be a tactic, right? So I've got create a robust volunteer system whereby young people can be mentored in the process of beautifying the community.
Maybe don't limit it to young, maybe
Or
just
just
say.
Residents.
Right.
Okay, that's good.
Because this is where you could get your historical society people involved too.
Right. Our residents can help beautify, create a robust volunteer system whereby our residents can help beautify the community. Okay, cool. That's a good strategy. That is in line with things we've talked about.
Mhm.
Okay, the community. All right, so I'm putting that under beautification and under provide additional resources to our residents. There is another word in that goal that is going to drive me crazy. Okay, all right, cool. Hey, that's beautification. I think we did a good job there. Now, I do want to, we do have a pretty large facade improvement program to approve tonight that is very important. So why don't we try to make our way through sustainability? And then
I think the rest are pretty digestible. I think.
Get through tonight.
Well, we can start there, but I think it's pretty, it trails off as you get deeper, but yeah.
Well, if we need to cut it,
Yeah,
let's, I mean, we can do this over two months, right?
Yeah,
Or two
absolutely.
meetings, right? And I do want to make sure we get to this facade program, because that is our most important thing to do. Right? Okay, so let's take a quick glance over at sustainability. That was one of the lenses. Through the lens of sustainability, how can we achieve a goal? What is a strategy that will help us achieve the goal of attracting and retaining businesses?
So I would put under design standards, building design requirements that include tax credits issued back for certain things like charging stations. That could fall under design standards or design.
So just so I understand this for the group, so to create incentives, which would be monetary, typically tax rebates, for people who choose to build with sustainable materials, or who build with materials or do something that is connected to, you know, sustaining the planet as well as the community.
We can put some definition around that, but
Which could be energy efficiency or say leads, some sort of leads certification.
yeah, right.
Okay.
Is that with industrial?
The lead certification.
Yeah.
Leads is for any building really, but it's a pretty high standard. Even their lowest level is pretty high standards.
Yeah. Is there a benefit to the village if somebody builds a warehouse and they put solar panels on the entire top? Is there any benefit?
To the village, I mean, it depends on what you consider. What are the village's strategies? The village strategy to be a more sustainable village overall? Yeah. I think our board would agree with that.
Okay. And this board definitely agrees with that.
Yeah.
So that was one of the, I think it was the second thing to come out from.
So there's been a lot of talk about solar in town in particular and charging stations and stuff. So.
I really liked your idea, Ryan, where you create an award for the most sustainable business. That could be a yearly thing. Who gets the award this year?
And I think through this community PR group that we have now, led by, I think, Heather Forder, I think is she the PR person, is, doing, Heather Forder, she was elected, in the last election. Just ways of because I really still love this Hampshire's very own. It's still one of my favorite parts of what we've done. But I think we can sort of continue to build on that people like to see the name of the paper, right? On Facebook or whatever you want.
And what if we awarded it at Coon Creek Days? You get a massive turnout and make it an award ceremony. Tied in with Coon Creek.
Trying to remember that. That was the last Engel Award that we
Yeah,
had.
Engel.
Yeah. And they do have Coon Creek set up for that, right? They do go through some things. I know when Scott and
There's always a bigger turnout for Coon Creek
Scott
Days.
Almquist. Yeah, he's one of the main Coon Creek guys. He gets up on stage and
Who?
Scott Almquist,
Oh, yeah.
I think is his name. And he's kind of the voice of the Coon Creek group. But yeah, no, I think that's good. Does everyone else like that? I mean, just as a strategy is to kind of draw attention to, the people that are doing things the right way and maybe create, and that tactic might be to create an award, but to highlight those who are building sustainability.
Yeah, I think that's great because those ideas address two different sides of the coin, right? How do you recognize businesses that are in town that are sustainable or driving sustainability? And how do you have different strategies to bring in new businesses, new sustainable businesses? I like the idea of the award every year, Susie, and really recognizing those businesses that work to make that difference.
Okay. And I definitely think that creative incentives and, I mean, we don't have a lot of tax credits that we can give to people. We do have some, but I think for sure to try to encourage people to do things sustainably, because a lot of times doing things sustainably costs more money.
Well, and it may not be us that has to do it, right? Maybe we're a conduit to connect the business to the state or to the federal government or where grants may be available, things like that.
So in a way of almost being the communications, I think you used the term conduit, so we have a really good handle on all the different programs that are available at the state and at the federal level that maybe we could deliver to companies in town through communication.
To be honest, right now, that's kind of an overwhelming task.
Yeah.
There are so many programs just getting thrown at us. Every day, I think I panic that I'm gonna miss one.
Yeah.
Like you sent me one today.
That should be another committee and take the load off your plate.
Well, Josh and I do it all day long. And there's just a lot going on, a lot of opportunity out there, but we've always talked about, doesn't seem like we hit that target when it's aimed for us yet.
And I think from this economic development strategy, at least the way that I've been sort of looking at it, and I think we've been talking about it, is this is just, these are the, what we're shooting for, right? As we grow and things like that, as you grow and you think of positions to add and, like we want to use this, hopefully this document to sort of guide some of those choices. So even if we're not able to fulfill it today, I think it's really good to still.
I'm sorry to break into this, but I wanted to mention to you, Ryan, next Friday, the 22nd, Kane County's having a countywide economic development luncheon roundtable.
Okay.
They haven't done it in a couple of years. You may have done it in the past, but I'll share that with you if you might be available.
Okay.
It's next Friday.
Next Friday?
Yeah, I plan on going myself.
Yeah.
It's around 11 to 1 or something.
Okay. All right. So those are really two good strategies for, I think, the tax incentives, drawing attention to companies that are, doing sustainability correctly. I thought another idea is, actually looking at this right, that's James, but is to, I think marketing to alternative energy installation companies. So it's an area that I think is going to be, I've actually contemplated starting a business myself, only because when we got our electric car, right, we had to put in, and I don't want to repeat because I said last time, but we had to put in a charger in my garage. And it cost, a little bit of money. It wasn't crazy expensive, but you're going to have people who can do that. And I'd love for them to find their homes here, build their yards here, build their, whether it's putting in, solar installation, although that seems to be more of a national thing, but there'll be all sorts of other things that crop up that are around this future tech. And that maybe marketing Hampshire as, not open and friendly to, businesses connected to alternative energy as a way of diversifying the world.
Yeah, EV is big. And so any new property being developed should have EV somewhere, somehow, right? Otherwise, I mean, all these cars are coming, so,
That's why I think Ryan's idea of starting a business, being an installer.
but I'm thinking like, if you have a plot of land, you're gonna build a strip mall, ensure that you have 10 spots
Right.
for stations or something like that.
They had that in California when I was out there years ago. All the
Yeah, did they?
whole new parking lot, these are all electric.
And
Somewhere not long ago, I saw a statistic that said if you had to line up all the the chargers it would take to fuel what a single gas station fuels in miles per gallon, it would take like 200 stations per gas station.
Yeah,
I can't remember how exactly that math worked, but it was kind of a scary number.
yeah, a lot of my customers are doing battery tech development. I mean, they're working with customers that is like massive, like the battery tech's got improved, right? Specifically the charging of the batteries at a time, but in beta, they've got 5-minute full charges in beta right now.
And storage.
And then, well, storage is really for the grid itself,
Yeah.
which I didn't understand that as well as I thought I did until someone really made me like a conversation. Like, oh, no. And he's like, yeah, you're wrong. But yeah, storage is a massive problem, specifically for the grid side. Okay, so 7:30. I know, I don't want
The
to.
only other thing I
What
had
else from
here
sustainability?
was ensuring that there's a level of green space when, right?
Yes, one. And that would be under enhancing communities image, but yes, green spray, setting out green space. for sure.
Instead of like every single green piece of area has to be built on, like ensuring that we have areas
Exactly.
for open space, right?
100%.
I don't know how we ensure that, but
Well, it's in all of our development agreements and it's in our development code. So yeah, that's for all new developments, it's required. Right.
good.
There's parkland, there's open space for retention, detention. So any new developments, that's really not a problem.
Yeah.
But it should definitely be documented.
It should be in this, yeah, for sure. And I think even in industrial spaces too. I mean, I get to go into a lot of cool industrial parks and that's pretty much my life is I live in industrial parks. And there's some places that do it way better than other places. That I think are good for employees, places, walkability, things of that nature. Like South Elgin just built a new industrial park and they've got, I mean, they don't have swings and stuff, but there's nice walkability places, sidewalks and things of that nature. And I think, for the benefit of you want the people from your town to work at these companies that are in your town, making sure that we have, green space available for them for their lunches and their breaks and things like that. So no, I think that's really good. Okay, anything else? Aaron, you got any thoughts on, or Bill, on sustainability, or Susie? Any other strategies towards?
I think one thing to think about is how can we partner with the chamber to find or to develop an education series to help businesses understand how they can become more sustainable, to bring in potential speakers, or right, we may have businesses that are really eager to do it, they just don't know how to. And so I don't know that that's on us, but it may be us partnering with the chamber to have the chamber lead that kind of an educational series.
That's a great idea.
I think it's a fantastic idea. Okay.
I agree.
All right. So, yeah, and I think the chamber, I mean, that's tactics, so I don't want to get to it, but I think for sure offering more services to our residents in terms of education through qualified means is a great thing for sure. And I think the chamber would be the perfect. So, okay, that's awesome.
Well, especially if the businesses learn how to do it and then find out there's going to be a tax credit or incentive for them to do it. It's like a double whammy. It's going to encourage them to do it.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing is to communicate federal and state incentive programs for sustainability.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so I think we got a lot done. What I would like to do now is I do want to make sure we give Mr. Robert and his partner the proper view of his application. So we're a few steps down, so I would like to entertain a motion to table the rest of the EDS, which we're gonna do for the next several meetings. Table the rest of the EDS conversation so we can move on further into the agenda.
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor of tabling the economic development strategy conversation until the next meeting indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Okay, the motion passes. Okay, good work, guys. We are quickly moving towards something that I think will be very useful for the village. Hopefully, we're achieving a goal that you set us on, Jay. Okay, I think this would be a time for us to learn a little bit about streetscape.
Starts May 2nd, ends the day before Coon Creek. If everything goes as planned, that's 16 weeks. And we had a pre-con meeting this morning. It went very well. The contractor has a lot of roots. He lives in Huntley. Has 2 kids, I think he said went to Hampshire High School. And he's just really, if you get a chance, well, we've got a video of it at the conference, but it's a really good meeting. And it's gonna be a real challenge, no question about it. They're gonna be in the fishbowl right out in front of Village Hall all the time.
Yeah.
I'm even thinking about putting a camera up by Village Hall so I can sit at home and watch them. Also, so we can see time lapses as it progresses.
Yeah.
So we're thinking about trying to do that. So yeah, it's, it's starting, we started to put up the signage. The village puts all the detour signs and the notifications. So I think you know all about it. There's really not much to report other than it's gonna start May 2nd or thereabouts within a couple of days of May 2nd.
Cool. And a conversation that we've had in the past, are we gonna overlap the interchange and this project, or
Yeah,
are
in
we gonna
fact,
miss?
it's getting out of control kind of. Our north-southwest system connection starts May 11th. That won't be much of a disruption except for Gas Road. The intersection at 72 and State is already starting. That's supposed to be done by the end of October, I think. And now we just got notification last week that IDOT is going to resurface Route 20 from the tollway all the way to the McHenry County line, which is a mile of Hampshire. About a half a mile of Hampshire incorporated, and then about a half a mile of future Hampshire. So we're going to have 4 major construction projects going on simultaneously in the village, all at the same time. But it's going to be a very productive year. I mean, a year from right now, or even 9 months from now, 8 or 9 months from now. So
Wow.
we will have suffered through a lot, hopefully, and survived. So that's
Yeah.
pretty exciting.
Cool, that's awesome. All right, thank you for that update. We are very, very, very excited to see, and I feel duty bound to ask this question. Any chance we found a way to get the lights?
We are working on something today. Mayor Reed came up with an idea.
Okay.
There's a lighting company that I didn't know it was in town up on Arrowhead Court,
Yeah,
Arrowhead Drive. And yeah, I just sent them the design or the the engineering drawings of the old system. And what they're going to work on is attempt to kind of make let's call it a quilt of lights, maybe the grid of lights, and then hang those lights from the 6 street lights that we're going to be doing. Mike and his wife are in Elgin, and I think they saw some lights similarly, actually with eye hooks right in the buildings. There's some concern with that. Obviously, we have to use private property to get everybody's permission, different qualities of brick and different kind of fronts, so that's not the best idea. But if we can actually string them from the 6, there's only 3 street lights in the current festival block. There'll be 6 in the new festival block. And this is the same guy who's donated all the lights for Coon Creek. So he's considering, I think Mike's got him considering donating something for us. So what we're trying to figure out is if he can figure out a way to hang those, whatever, you could create the grid of lights, if you will, whatever that is, and then just hang it from 6 poles. So I'm oversimplifying it, but I just sent the engineering drawings to him this afternoon, and we'll see what he comes up with. And there's an idea out there, and that could all be after the fact, because the poles will be there.
if you guys pull that off, the next statue we build or someone, you or Mike, or maybe both of you
That
together.
was entirely Mike's idea and his contact, so.
Well, that would be huge, because as I noted in the minutes from the last meeting, that's a big deal for us. We really want to see that happen. Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Jay. On to the sad piece. of the agenda. I think now would be a good time. And yes, so I would like to turn the floor over to Ms. Kopaz
Turn it over to me.
for a second.
No, we just, we've been dreaming of downsizing for a long time, for 2 years, and didn't know where we wanted to go, or what, Utah, Arizona, Florida, we had no idea. I'm originally from Central Illinois, and so we went down to Springfield on the 13th of March, and we're looking at houses. We had 5 set up. By the time we got down there, 2 had sold. We had 3 left to look at. That's how fast we set them up on Saturday, and by Sunday, 2 had sold. So we saw 3 down there. It was like, didn't hit us. One was really good, but it's 3,900 square feet. That's not downsizing.
Yeah.
So.
Unless your house is huge.
Exactly. So we're driving home, and I look on Realtor.com, and there's a house in Dixon, which is where my husband grew up, born and raised. And on a lark, we said, oh, let's see if we can go. So I texted my realtor. This is such a bizarre story. I said, can you see if you can get us into this house? Now, she is in St. Charles, right? But I've known her since she was 18 years old in Belgium. And so she gets on the phone to the houses, who listed it. Ended up, the guy that listed the house we wanted to go see, she knew, because she sold his son's house in St. Charles. So they got us in there like that. 2 hours later, we were in the house. As soon as we walked down, we both thought, this is it. This is it. It was just the weirdest thing. The only problem was it had a vacant lot behind us and a really, really nice homes behind us, But if somebody built a house right on that lot, it'd ruin our view, because we're kind of like higher up looking over.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know where I live now, I have a view, the $1 million view. And so they gave us the name of the guy that owns the property. Now get this, the lot next to ours is vacant. It's a city lot. It's listed for $24,000.
Mhm.
The lot behind us, I texted the guy in Belvedere. Yeah, I'll sell 2 for $7,500.
Better buy both of them.
Sold.
Yeah, done.
So we bought the house and we bought the
Oh,
lot.
that's awesome.
We came home, we had 27 years full of junk in our house. And I mean, we had my mom and dad's stuff, Gary's mom's stuff, our kids' stuff.
Yeah.
Our friends from Iowa came, they brought their work clothes and their dolly, and we worked for 4 days straight and got a storage locker here in town and emptied out our house. Put it on the market on Thursday night. Rented a hotel room with our cat weekend to get out of the house. Came back Sunday afternoon, had 7 offers and sold it Sunday night
Oh, my God.
for over $30,000 asking price.
Holy.
But it gets worse. 5 minutes before their deadline to back out, they backed out.
Mhm.
So we're like, called her realtor, called her, she goes, don't worry. I didn't burn any bridges. She called back the other people that made offers. 2 hours later, we sold it again
Wow.
for $20,000. Actually, more than $25,000. And it got appraised yesterday to market value, so we are done.
Wow.
So we were moving June 1st or earlier. And that's it. I'm excited.
And you're still willing to travel all the way back to Hampshire?
No.
I was gonna say that.
I'm sorry, Jay.
There is teams.
It's only about 2 hours to Dixon, right?
No, it's an hour and 10 minutes.
There you
I
go.
should have
Even
told
better,
you.
even better.
And you can stay at Dave's house.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Our state judge compares to Chris.
I'm at my house.
So anyway, that's the deal. Chris is Gary's hometown. So it was really weird because the realtor met us that met us at the door of the house we're gonna look at. She walked up and she goes, Kopaz, yeah, you were a really good basketball player. So then we found out her name, and I student taught in Amboy, Illinois. She was a freshman when I was student teaching junior seniors. I had her brother in my class.
Wow.
So it's just too many small town stuff.
Yeah.
It's destiny.
So it's exciting.
Congratulations.
So you'll be at May's meeting.
I told Ryan I would. He thought tonight was my last meeting.
Yeah, so I did bring cookies. You guys, I'm a man and we're just not good at stuff like this, but I went to Costco and I'm like, I gotta do something for Susie. There was a bow, you can see it, very small. All right, so I'm gonna pass this around, and as we do, I do want to say a couple words about.
Wait till May, or do you want me not to come?
Well, this is the event, I'll say something else, but, first of all, I think on behalf of all of us, Susie, you are one of our, you were the first person I think that I was involved in bringing on, if
Yes,
I remember
and
correctly,
you didn't want me
is, thanks. I didn't want you.
because I didn't live within the village limits.
Oh, that was.
And
cool.
so,
You
and
did.
so I said, I personally, and I said, I personally know somebody on your zoning committee that lives in Marengo, so that's not somebody on the board.
So I will say this. You know, we would not have accomplished what we have accomplished without the fervent, thorough and committed approach that you've given this group. I wanted, on the behalf of all of us, and I think we all agree in unison, that having you as part of this board has been a tremendous privilege. And we are going to be very sad to see you go. And I wanted to, and I'm certain that we all agree, is just to give you a heartfelt thank you. And it has been a incredible joy to.
We've come a long way.
We have come a
We have
long.
come a long way since I remember we used to sit around that table.
Remember, what was this?
I remember.
Remember Art's one?
You should have been here day one.
Yeah, I'm glad I was.
We were like, it's old back then.
Hey, I remember Art Zwinke was buying that land up there.
Um,
Do you remember the meeting at the Hampshire High School?
I vaguely, I was
So-
just a new resident.
I spoke at that one.
Hmm.
And I told the mayor then, when they were saying that we couldn't do anything about it because we were not village township. And I said, well, then incorporate us and I'll run for mayor.
I got my grief.
When I was in the last board meeting, actually asking us to put up a sound barrier at the tollway.
To put up with sound, oh, really?
Yeah.
Mhm. It is.
Yeah, as you know, we can't help much.
I know, that's one of the reasons.
Susie, I will always remember that my first real introduction after I was hired by the board was that meeting over at the bank. And the
The Main
Main Street meeting.
Yep.
Left me a very positive impression of the village, and yeah, a lot of those people in that room are still with us. I mean, still leaders in the community.
Right.
Yeah, it's great.
It's a great community, it really is. I always told people I moved to Mayberry when I moved in.
Yeah.
I moved to Mayberry.
Well, now you've helped shape Mayberry in a very significant way. I know you did a lot of work with the school district, and I'm sure that work, the community has benefited from, but I know for sure, the work that you've put in here and your consistency and your willingness to, well, I was telling a story. I was talking to Ian Lamp on the phone today because I called him, was chatting. You know, the first thing, your first project on our board, you know what it was? Do you remember? You went out to Dixon
I
to
know,
look at Dixon to see, and I'm like, oh my God, maybe.
that's right.
And you remember? Like, you remember that
Yeah.
report? And she did that whole thing. And I don't know if it was the first thing, that was
No,
pretty good.
you're right, it was a Main Street program, and I'd heard it on NPR, because I was listening to the station out of DeKalb. And this guy actually he was from Rochelle, was talking about what a great change Dixon had made. And so I thought, oh, just go check it out, and that's how I found out about the Main Street.
Yeah, he came back, he gave us a great report. And he was so compelling, I actually drove up myself and drove through
Did you
Dixon.
really?
I did, yeah. So anyways, we'll say some more things next week, but I plan on saying these tonight. So thank you so much, Susie. It's been a tremendous.
Bring fresh cookies next time. No, I'm just.
Now you got me choked.
Don't save these, that's what I meant, don't save these.
Oh. Like, man, we got the cookie police over here.
No, I said,
Not
don't.
only
I'm
again,
gonna check my cookie credentials at the door.
Wow.
But thank you, Susie. Okay.
I just dropped some estrogen into your test house.
No. Well, a little fight with you too. Which I like. All right, so we'll do something again next week, but I was certainly, as I told my sister today, paying attention is not my strongest gift. So I'm sure you told me May, but I heard today, so
I could gladly make today my last meeting.
we would love to have your contribution if you're available for the next
We
week.
may need you for a forum, since we have another vacancy too.
Oh, who else?
I was gonna wait till next week and talk about.
We will have another vacancy, so. But that was public.
It's okay. Well, I guess it's, that's all right. Ian,
Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell the last year, his availability has been a bit scattershot due to the fact that I think he's on 12 different boards. And that was why I called him today, just to thank him. I mean, we're all relatively important, but I know he's involved in a lot of things, like including being president of the Elgin Country Club, running a massive construction company, so the fact that he graced us with his presence for so long, I was very grateful. So we'd like to thank him for his contribution. I was planning on doing it next meeting just because I didn't want to get panicked. that,
When is it,
was falling apart.
now?
What's that?
Is it effective now?
He gave his resignation effective immediately.
Okay.
So, so we do need to, I figure.
So I'll come see a quorum.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll work on that, so.
We posted that vacancy today on the website, so that's why.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Mike wanted to get, Mike's.
Do you need a written letter of resignation? Paul?
You sent a letter to Mike or to Ryan with a copy to Mike with a copy to Ryan would probably be better,
I'll do it.
because Mike wants you to show.
Well, you guys are kind. They're making me stay on the charter school board till July.
Oh, we can do that?
Okay, we're October then.
Yes, it's said, Jay, obviously think alike.
Main Street. TBD, right?
TBD. Yeah, we need to do a recess on that.
Right.
Which we've kind of been in limbo since pandemic anyways.
I
But,
should reach out to Elaine again.
yeah, we need to,
She would be so good at the Main Street.
I do, but,
Elaine,
oh, she's just, yeah.
she travels a lot.
Yeah.
That's what her concern was, number one, I don't own a business in the town anymore.
Right. That's what she told me.
And number two, we travel a lot. That was her only concern.
Yeah.
But she's a multitasker. She could probably work on a little
Camper.
camper. That's the word, camper.
Okay. So, yeah, we'll have to address several of those things and, but, yeah, so a little bit of a reset on the board when we bring this movie on. Our only hope is they could be as effective as the two.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so moving on to beautification report. Mr. Bill Swalwell has had a busy week and a half or so. So treat us to your news.
Sure. We had a productive and effective meeting on Monday, hearing the grant application for the Hampshire Social. Very well prepared application. One of the best I think we've seen. From its initial submission to just before its hearing on Monday, were two very minor changes, what I consider to be minor. One was he included a photograph to support what it is they're proposing to do to the masonry veneer on the rear of the building, which is essentially to stain it, but to stain it white, the brick is red. The reason for that, and the facade program has some pretty strict guidelines about painting masonry. Again, they're staining it. I guess you'll still be able to see through it partly, but the reason for that and why that's different than any of the other elevations is because what they've got on the sides, the neighboring buildings are painted white and they're starting to peel, look a little aged. So they're trying to establish a little uniformity back there in the courtyard. So I understood that. The only other revision was to the concrete proposal for the patio in the back, which has to be ADA compliant because they plan on using that municipal parking lot pretty heavily for access and parking because there isn't really much out front, and even more so less with the parallel parking. But anyway, they plan to use that rear entrance pretty heavily. And that patio, they had originally just got a proposal for flat work, just normal concrete. And I mentioned to him at one point the stamped concrete that was recently installed behind Copper Barrel and some of the other things, the creative things that you're seeing people do, including the village with the crosswalks and things like that. He's like, not a problem. So they submitted a revised bid for the concrete flat work to do some sort of a, I think the proposal showed a photograph of something that looks like planking.
Yeah, it does.
So, other than that, it's a pretty comprehensive, you all should have copies of the different proposals and the different trades that are coming through to do the work. Did any of those generate questions for anybody that I can try and answer?
The only thing I had, first of all, I am thrilled with this application. Are they in town? owners?
Yeah, Brandon lives in Prairie Ridge, been there for 2 years.
And the other co-owner, I want to say lives in Pingree.
Yeah, he's an elderly
Pingree.
police officer.
Okay.
Brandon is a firefighter, but I forgot.
Mhm.
I applaud them, like, this is totally in line with what we want. The one thing that I didn't see here was the patio. And the patio, if I recall right, is outside of our facade scope, I believe.
It's on the expenses. Scope.
Yeah, but
The scope of the
All the
program,
scope.
outside of the scope of the program, I believe.
and that's the back of the building there.
Yeah.
It's almost full.
But that being said, I think when I reviewed the scope of work, that is not included in this. Is it?
Yeah,
Yeah, it is.
it is.
I don't see it.
It's in the breakdown of estimate costs.
No, but in this scope
Oh,
of work,
that scope.
it summarizes,
Oh.
I don't see it here. I could be wrong.
Dave, I think that might be a mistake on my part. So when Bill forwarded me the updated quotes with the pricing and the pictures, I didn't think to go back and try to add that to the scope of work that Brandon had created. So I also didn't, thoroughly review the application like Bill and his committee did. So I would say in the spirit of what Brandon is applying for, it should be included in the scope of work. Whether or not you guys want to approve that, that's up to you.
Okay. Yeah, so right now, I just letter of law, it's not in there. Just wanted to point that out, not saying point for Mondes, just,
The patio design, because right now, I don't know if you saw the photos, what's back there now, it's just grass. And there's there's access, but for you and I, but not for your average patron. Their goal is to pave this entire area specifically to make the rear entry ADA compliant. And that is one of the revisions. I'm not saying the whole patio does that, but it does provide a hard surface where there currently is none. But this will wind up being their access point over here. The door that's currently boarded up is going to be reopened, and that'll be where the entry is. The window will stay. I think they were just replacing the window unit. And this has to be bricked up. But they're moving the entrance over here. I think it had something to do with the height of the stoop too, but they're gonna pour that patio so that it's a smooth transition. You're gonna go from one to the other. And one of the things they had that architect look at was the ADA compliance guidelines that would be necessary and where exactly they needed that finished elevation to wind up. So that the ADA compliance, that part, I'm confident qualifies as
it does, yeah,
a project, but it's
the entryway,
right.
yeah.
But where do you start and stop on that? I can't speak to. You know what I mean? Where do you draw the line? That-
I hear it.
Well, it's a good point.
Yeah, I'm a fan of this. How much is the patio portion, you know? Just curious.
That sounds right.
I know.
Is that Life is Good? No. Which, rear patio.
Sky Nova, rear patio concrete installation, 98.7.
Oh, I see. And the rear patio privacy wall. That's materials. That's when they build the fence.
So
Yeah.
I have a question. When you look at the back of the building as it is now, I mean, I can visualize what they're gonna do, but what about like Randy's car shop isn't that Randy's car shop on one side with that awful looking
That
one
land
over
is
there?
all owned by Craig Miller and Craig. He doesn't even own that land behind his own building. So this is all on a verbal understanding he has with Ed. And I cautioned Brandon the other day to make sure he gets all that right.
Right.
His bathroom even extends into Ed's building.
Do we need that in place before we recommend that portion of the facade?
I don't know.
Can I ask a question about that? Because I know there's been a lot of talk about rear yards and all. This is a facade program. So this is a rear facade. It's not really visible from any road anywhere. So I was surprised to see the patio included, I guess, Bill. That's what I was curious about.
I guess to that point, Jay, it's, the discussion we had when rear rear visibility was brought up in other projects, it was pointed out, actually, it would be kind of visible. In this one, if I'm reading it correctly, it's not only is it the rear, but they would be putting up a fence to hide the visibility. Is that accurate?
I was thinking I can't speak to exactly where the fence goes. I reviewed it with Brandon, and at the same time, he was talking about applying something with the permission of the building owners next door, something that would possibly partially conceal the masonry work. So, but at the same time, he mentioned that the fence would be providing security, that it would have a gate. But I think because of fire access and egress, you can't have it. They can't have a gate like that. I went through that discussion with Randy and Michelle. When they put in the patio and the ultimate fencing along the back, there's an opening. You can't, there's also an emergency exit. So I don't know if the fence will completely block it off, is where you were going. So I think this part of it's still gonna have to remain open. But this discussion did come up previously on rear elevations, you know, something that's not part of the facade. But I guess the way the guidelines were written, and we reviewed this previously, was if it's visible from a right of way, and then the question becomes, well, if it's a roadway or an alleyway, if you can see it from that right of way, then we agreed to include it in the grant prior applications. So
I think also too,
No, I was just gonna say, and across the parking lot, you've got two or three other businesses. So it's not like it's backing up to a residential area. That is going to be an economic area. Why are you smiling?
No, this is the slippery slope I was afraid of when we did the last rear building,
Over
right?
here?
And I made that argument at that time.
Which one was that?
That was the Washington Street property.
oh,
The rear.
It was the, yeah, we did
That's what
the,
the-
because the argument was we could see it from, no, I'm not saying, but it's just one of those things is,
What did you do in the rear?
we did, what did we,
We-
that was on,
is this the Basset Hound place?
No.
it's the same people who did the best, doctor's
The
office.
doctor's office across the
Yeah.
street.
And we did the alley work for them.
Yes.
Right, on the back of their building.
Siding, some windows in the door and gutter work.
Yes. And I voted against it, and I voted against it for this reason, right, I love this project, and I want that to not, and I said the same thing about the last one. I think it's critically important. It is 100, if not 1,000% in line with our vectors of intentionality. I think we're getting ourselves into trouble if we continue to fund things that are off mission. And I think, like, if you look at Copper Barrel, right, the goal for us as a board, and as I had mentioned then, and I mentioned in the past, I always look at us as kind of like a hedge fund manager, right? And we're dealing with other people's money.
No, I'm
Best-
smiling because it's a big jump.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very small hedge fund, right? It's probably about what, what that guy's probably car costs, whoever runs a hedge fund. But the point is, our responsibility is to invest that money, the people's money of Hampshire, towards those ends, that benefit us. And the program was originally designed to spruce up Main Street. And Main Street in general, I think, is considered the storefronts off of State Street, right? We expanded it. At the time, it originally was just gonna be on State Street, but we then moved it to Washington. We then moved it to all the way down to 72, which is fine. I just worry specifically
We haven't
here.
gone to 72, just for the record. We had a request, but it didn't go there.
Well, I was gonna say, but our guidelines allow us to go all the way to 72.
No, actually not, because we turned down, Jeannie had somebody that she wanted to bring in. We said no, because it doesn't.
I think it was only
The chicken.
that that was on State Street 272.
It's like-
That building, I think.
I know Jeannie asked about a member about a year ago, and I checked.
You and I both talked about it,
Yeah,
and it
it
didn't.
was not eligible.
I think it was like two.
Consensus that they're,
Yeah.
consensus not to go there. I just want to add two facts.
Yeah.
As Josh said, this is your guys' decision. But I do want you to be aware that, well, as Bill knows, we have two other applications that we're expecting probably in the next week. One from Blocks and one from the owner of the Rose Garden. Both of them Bill's met with, knows more about what they plan to do than I do. I will say that the owner of the Rose Garden, I think, has gotten a bad rap around town, maybe from the former tenants of the Rose Garden building, because he's a really nice guy. And he operated that restaurant for 15 years. All three of his kids graduated from Hampshire High School. And then he moved to Washington because his sons played soccer at Bradley. So anyway, those two, and then the last, well, the one fact I already mentioned is that we have two other, and then Brandon has also expressed an interest. He plans to apply for a TIF grant. Now that's something that's going to be a bit challenging since the TIF fund is basically broke. But the village board could authorize that. If he brings an application to us, we will, as staff, be obligated to take it to the village board, and the board could approve that. It would be funds that would ultimately come right out of the village funds because the TIF doesn't have any funds. But he does plan to apply for that for some of his internal improvements. So those are just three facts that I want to add to the table, that's all.
And that was gonna be where I finished, really. The idea is that we only have so much money.
Now, last year you had all three applications sitting before you at the same night.
Right.
They all came in together, but the other two just couldn't get in time, so that's all I want.
So that would be my own point, right, is we'll have so much money, we got 100 grand, we have 100 this year, correct?
Yeah, it's 100, which is more than we've had the last 2 years.
Thank you for that in the budget process. So that's my only point.
Sure.
Is I think that specifically, if this was the end of the cycle, we had nothing else that we had funded, right, to this point. We're at the end. There's no perspective, other projects coming in. I'm not a huge fan of use it or lose it, but fundamentally you look at it from a use it or lose it kind of perspective. Knowing that we got these other grants coming, my only point that I would like to share is I do not believe, having been present during the construction of the facade program, that we had ever intended on doing the rears of buildings. And specifically, if you really look at this rear, Bill, and this is what I'm looking at here, and that's what concerns me. It's almost invisible to the street. I mean, except for a very narrow slice, right? This is the building here. That Randy Ross's building,
That slice is the visible.
like this spot right here.
You got it.
So you literally,
The two buildings, I
Yeah.
mean, it's visible, but it's.
From the alley.
yeah, I
It's
mean,
visible.
I was sitting in the alley talking to Ed just yesterday and looking at that land.
and so that'll be, that, you know, I'll leave my piece there, but that's my position on it. And I do worry that, you know, and I didn't mean to smile while you were talking, Susan, but that's, you know, I have 4 kids, so I'm very familiar with what slippery slopes are. Right, I say okay to the one kid, right? And then you think, well, that's a one-time, you know.
Stuff
you make
under
a-
14 and.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, the next one's like, well, you let Amy do it, now I want to do it, and then next, well, you let Owen and Amy do it now. So that'd be, you know, that's my piece on that. I would rather stick to the fronts of the building. Copper Barrel put their rear patio in, I think in year 2, maybe even year 3. I don't know that the rear patio is critical to his business. Obviously, I'm very concerned about that. I want him to succeed.
Yeah.
But my position on this is that the original facade program is not intended for rears of building. That we should preserve our funds for these other projects. So,
The only thing I'd like to add is, I believe we have in the guidelines, if somebody is a tenant, they have to get written authorization that work can be done, right? So if he doesn't own the property for the patio, then, and we don't have something written outside of acknowledgement that.
What you could do is make a recommendation and it would be subject to him confirming that he has access in some written agreement.
Okay.
but we would want that.
Yeah.
I agree with
So
you.
can I ask a question on that, just for formality's sake? Can you have one, and if so, great, but can you have one facade application that applies to property, to 2 different ownership properties?
That's a valid question. I may be able to speak to that. Not any answer to your question, Aaron, but definitely relevant. And this is it. When I met with Brandon and his partner, we walked the property. I've been there 4 times. And when we walked the patio area in the back, my understanding after he had the plat done, that the patio is entirely on his property. That grass area back there is his. When you get to the narrow area, the access point between the buildings,
Mhm.
that belongs to,
That belongs.
and is owned by Drymount or Craig, or Ed in this case. But where he showed me the patio is going, that's entirely on their property, because he pointed out where it ended, where the property line ended. That's where the patio would end. And then the area behind that, there's still some grass area, a portion of which Dry Millers doesn't own, but it's like an 8 or 10 foot strip. Currently, there's stainless steel tanks stockpiled on the property, and Ed offered to move those out for aesthetics reasons. But part of it is owned, but my understanding is the patio is entirely on their property. But again, we can hear it and make a recommendation, assuming we get confirmation. Josh, did you have something along those lines?
I was just gonna say, I pulled up the plat map from the Kane County GIS page, and I can actually just share my screen real quick so you can all see it. That's not it though. So this rectangle right here is his building, and he does have this, if you can see the shading on that screen. Maybe if I do an aerial shot, that'll be a little better.
We can see it. That's reflective of exactly
Oh,
what
okay,
he,
that's what you just.
what he showed.
Yes, the only point is he cannot exit his property to the rear without crossing.
Oh,
Ed's
got it.
property, right? In fact, those are the
And the other
tanks
side
he
too,
was
both sides.
talking about, where that, you see that stuff stockpiled? That's all on Ed's property.
And that's Ed's truck parked right there. I saw it yesterday.
Yeah,
He parks there all the time.
that's good, Josh. Thank you. That clarifies.
I just want to say I agree with, Jay. Whatever he gets in an agreement with Ed, he better get it right. Before maybe.
That's,
For his sake. Yeah, for
of
his-
course, good advice. to
I stopped and chatted with him the other day. He was very, very friendly.
Still need
And I think Fran has just made friends with everybody in town already. He's including Ed.
Sounds great.
It's awesome.
So do you want to vote on this or?
Or do we want to hear the other?
Yeah, I mean, do we have any more
Make
conversation?
some points.
Go ahead, yeah, I think we still have time for conversation.
It's along the same lines, and this was brought up on Monday with the possibility of two other projects. In fact, they wanted to know what the status was, what the scope of those projects were, and when we could anticipate seeing applications. I gave an overview of the two different projects, what they are. I'll just do that real quickly. The gentleman from Blocks, what they're planning on doing is removing the existing overhangs on part of the sidewalk on the south side, the front, and on the east side.
Wait.
Pardon?
On Maple.
On Maple, thank you. They're leaking, they've been impacted, box trucks have hit them and smashed them, it doesn't keep water off people. So what he was talking about doing was submitting an application just for the replacement of those steel awnings and extending them from the corner of the building all the way to the west end of the building. And then on the east elevation from the corner all the way down to where the bump out is, where there's like an employee entrance or whatever. So that was the limit and scope of what his project was. He had requested an estimate or from a contractor and hadn't gotten it yet. But he said, when I do, I'll let you know. And that was probably about 4 or 5 weeks ago, maybe. Then I most recently met with the gentleman from Rose Garden, and his, what he had in mind was to do some masonry repair along the south side of the building, Jefferson Street, where the bottom 3 feet run along the sidewalk is pretty deteriorated and falling apart, cracking. It's stucco kind of sprayed on and smeared over the existing masonry. He was gonna have that cut out, moved roughly 3 feet above the sidewalk, and a contrasting, maybe a natural stone installed. And
It stopped there.
and it would stop there. Basically, I think he would be addressing a maintenance issue that's probably been there for quite some time. It's been repaired multiple times, as you can see when you look at the masonry work on it. So that was what he wanted to do. He mentioned that, from what I recall, he had no intent of replacing the fabric awnings, but he did intend to take them off, from what I recall. And lastly, the front elevation, he's got 2 units, basically, 2 storefronts. And the southernmost storefront, I don't know if this was 20 years ago when he bought it and fixed it out, built it out. The parapet wall was in terrible disrepair. They just removed it. And now when you stand out here in front of the hall and look at it in daylight, they're completely different heights.
Yeah.
And there's no like finished transition. It's a little rough. He was just planning on covering it up with something. I suggested maybe replace it with masonry. I know, that's expensive, but he's just plans to wrap it in aluminum and basically just cover it.
So stucco remains.
Is it on this building? We're talking this building here?
Yes,
Okay. That's stucco, right, on the front?
yeah,
Okay, so he's not gonna do anything with that?
no, at least at this time. So the biggest portion of it is that masonry replacement with natural stone, 3 feet up, running down the entire south side of the building.
But not on the west side.
No, I don't think he's doing anything on the State Street side.
So just this lower portion though?
Yeah,
So.
That would be about like they did at the there's a turf guy that did the building just a couple doors north, right? That stone at the bottom.
Yes.
Like the old library stone kind of.
Yeah.
He mentioned something to me about putting siding on that south panel, that south wall. And I thought that, I was hoping you might talk him out of that.
Yeah, he didn't mention that to me. He was more focused on the masonry, was concerned about what that would cost, the masonry at street level. I mentioned the masonry on the facade, and he says, well, that would be costly. And I'm thinking, well, you're doing masonry on the south side, you know.
When it was a lot longer on the south than it would be on the east.
Exactly, and it's 3 feet high. The parapet wall that's missing is probably 2 feet. And it's only the width of 1/2 of the building that he's got, you know, so anyway. That's the scope of the other projects. Some of the beautification members brought that up on Monday. And the consensus after that discussion was, it is what it is. I mentioned to them, and I do to all the applicants, that the program is a first come, first serve. And it's based on what the village board approves to be available for that fiscal budget year. They're both aware of the timeframe element. I mentioned that to them, all the applicants, and they're well aware of it. So everybody on Monday more or less said, okay, we have a grant application before us. We have to hear it. There will still be some remaining funds based on this year's budget approval of 100. So let's move forward. And that's, you know, can you guarantee we will get an application? I hope.
Right.
Will it happen? Time will tell. So that's the premise under which everyone said, let's forge ahead.
For this project, when are they looking to start?
Pardon me, when are they looking to
Yeah,
start?
for this one.
As soon as possible.
Oh, okay.
They are chomping at the bit.
Sure.
He
And
told
when,
us yesterday, or was that this morning still? Yeah, it was this morning, sorry. That he'd like to be open August 1st, a month before Coon Creek, so he can get his team.
yeah, they've done considerable work inside demolition, removed partition walls and offices, and they're starting to work on the infrastructure inside. I think electric and plumbing and getting things figured out where the bathrooms need to go and that sort of thing. But they're doing as much as they can inside as they can. They emphasized to me on more than one occasion, the two applicants, that this grant program is allowing them to do what they otherwise wouldn't have been able to do. And it's going to allow them to finish off the inside in a fashion that they feel the village deserves. Not that that has anything to do with our grant, but they were very appreciative of the program and the possible assistance that it might afford for the work that they're doing on the exterior. Very appreciative. I had one final point about the exterior of the building and the rear versus the front facade. What I'd like to do is just briefly touch on historically how we've evaluated that in the past. And this did come up a total of 3 times so far. The first was with the Basset Hound hearing and the review of their application. That was one of the larger projects, but that's where we had to review in detail the guidelines of the grant program, and it clearly spelled out as long as it's visible from a right of way, it therefore would be eligible. In that case, what they essentially did was just recite it, consistent with the other 3 sides. And that was truly the rear of the building, and when you're on State Street, you can see it as you're coming south. Then we had the doctor's office come up, the rear visible off the alleyway,
Yep.
which is a right of way. And the siding, that discussion came up, and then it also came up, I guess the 3rd time at the same time as the doctor's project, and that was the building next to the Basset Hound Rescue, that commercial spec property that they were doing. And they resided and replaced windows on the entire building, and that was because the rear was visible from State Street. You can see it somewhat as well. Is it the primary goal and objective of the program? I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Right.
But we've got these guidelines, and I'm trying to interpret them objectively
Sure.
and fairly. And if something doesn't qualify, I'm the first to call it out.
Yeah.
And in
What
this
did you
project,
end up doing on the doctor's office?
we did approve it. We did hear it as part of the project. In terms of the work, there was siding, I think gutters and windows and a door. If
The
I'm not
doctor's
mistaken.
office in the rear?
Yeah,
Off that back. And the argument was that you could see it from Jefferson.
Lots of parking.
Yeah, or technically from Jefferson, you can see it, because it really, the right of way, I think from my own understanding, had to be a road that was listed in our list of streets. Because if you look at the facade, I'm not, this is not a hill I'm gonna die on.
right.
But I do want to say that, you know, I am concerned what, would we be open to the idea of, you know, breaking this project up a little bit? In the sense of, you know, my advice is, let's fund the part that's 100% without question, part of our program. Let's leave the patio, because according to our program, the same applicant can reapply. We've actually had one applicant apply twice. You know, Von Nils or, Von Kool.
Attorney's office.
Yeah, he's applied twice. You know, so there's nothing opposing that. What I would hate for, because I would like us to persuade Rose Garden to be a little bit more ambitious, you know, in the sense of what they're trying to do. That is one of the
He
eyesores.
hasn't gotten a code enforcement letter yet because he's been real nice.
Okay.
If he's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are code issues still on the exterior of that building that we have not cited him on.
Can I ask some questions? One,
Yeah,
you
go
segued off to Rose Garden. I want to ask about Rose Garden. Is there someone that's going to rent it? Do they have a renter coming in there?
Not officially yet, but when I spoke to him on Monday, I think it was, he said he's talking to somebody in Oswego who would bring in a lunch and dinner Mexican and American breakfast.
Okay,
He's
so,
talking to a guy in Oswego that is interested and he thinks he might be a couple weeks away from the lease, but you know, that's just
So here's-
speculation. He does seem to know a lot of people in business.
Right.
Because his
is that
dad was also ran a restaurant.
Fatigotti, what's his name? Fatigotti? What's his name?
I can't remember his last name, but I got it here. His first name is Dan.
I think
I
my
can-
kids went to school with.
I can tell you what it is.
My concern over that was he's just making Band-Aid fixes. And if somebody that was really like a Copper Barrel owner wanting to come in and take over that property, they would want to fix it the way they would want it to look. And I hate to see, just like we did with the dollar store, Band-Aid fixes that are not really going to improve the facade.
Do not disagree with that.
Agreed.
Or there's also another option,
Yeah, Ramadan, my kids went to school with him.
or another option could be, breaking out the project in terms of awarding X percentage for the front and X percentage for the back,
Well, that's a good idea.
right? There could always be that option.
That's a good idea.
What is the dollar amount of the grant, Bill?
I have to look at the
I think
meeting
it's
minutes from Monday.
75.
It's 75% of 75,000.
56,743.
And the rear, you said was what, around 9,000?
Yeah.
The rear.
No.
Flat work was.
That's just the patio.
Yeah.
Which I do think the patio begs the question too, doesn't it, Bill, somewhere? Does that fall? I mean, again, I don't want to be negative, but at the end of the day, I do worry about precedent.
Right.
You know, because Copper Barrel didn't apply for their rear, did they?
No.
They funded that themselves.
JABR, I don't think their patio was part of that, was it?
No.
So, you know, and it's the group's decision. It's just, you know, I think the timing on Rose Garden could potentially be critical. I think I don't know anybody who sees us funding at 75% wouldn't want to do something pretty significant. I just,
For what, the Rose Garden?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
and I think part of me thinks he could be talked into it. I don't know the person. And I mean, I have called him 3 times.
He is a
He's
nice
never
guy.
responded to me, so, you know, I will accept that he's a nice guy.
In the last, since the Rose Garden closed or before that?
No, well before.
Oh,
Yeah, when we wanted to get them interested previously.
That's the discussion and the reaction I recall someone gave.
Yeah,
And
I mean-
I was under the impression you had given him a call a number of times as well.
No,
And we got crickets.
yeah, I did call him and he didn't call back. That was 2 years ago. And then we were getting ready to send him the code enforcement letter that we did send to Palazzolo's and the Dollar Store and a couple others. But then when I spoke to, pronounce their last name, Sam and
Oh, season.
yeah, Zizi. They were concerned that if we came down on him, that he would come down on them. And that's where I got the impression that this guy was really difficult to work with and, very demanding. I just had a very different impression when I met him and when I talked to him on the phone now several times. Now, I was there just briefly when you were there, right, Bill? And then I left because I wanted Bill to do his thing. I don't have anything to contribute to that. But I do think with code enforcement and some other things, we could probably, as I think you said, Ryan, we could encourage him, maybe persuade him to do more. So,
I mean, it's a major piece, right?
I mean, that building is just that one wall is like one of the major
Right.
views of the whole village.
Right.
And that's why I was hoping we wouldn't put vinyl siding up there.
I'll
I
pay
mean, we did it over here, but you can't see any of it. Just, you know, secure.
But it is visible from right away.
Yeah, waiting for the alley. You can see a little bit of it from the street.
If you crook your neck.
Drive by.
Is it right?
drive by-
Well, here's the other thought that I had too, just to kind of throw this out there, because I really, I would, because this is the potential negative that I see. Is all of a sudden the guy at Rose Garden gets, real excited, right? Or the.
There've been a couple offers to buy that building. too.
Yeah, or the new person comes in and, from a timing standpoint, we can't give them, the money that they need to do that project in the right way. When the rear patio, I have to, and I don't know what Brandon's business is, we do have the ability to come back and revisit that part. So I guess my thought, again, I'm just another member of the board, just like everybody else. My thought is I would prefer to address, that front looks phenomenally good and fantastic. And would be no means be a rejection of the rear of the building. But perhaps, although I would still make the argument, I think but we could sort of table it, and if all of a sudden Rose Garden, nothing happens with it, and, Blocks wants to do some small little thing too, and we got a whole bunch of money sitting over, we do have all the way through May 1st of next year does he have to spend the money by then, Jay, or does he just have to be approved by then?
I went.
By May 1st of next year?
Yeah, the money has to be out the door. I'm trying to remember the exact cutoff, because it's coming up in a couple of weeks. Because we're still trying to get some invoices in from the current grant. So, yeah, the grant has to be awarded, they have to spend the money, and we actually have to reimburse them for it.
Okay, so, you'd have to.
But we're talking about 13 months from now.
Well, yeah, but there's time doing patio work, and concrete work in April can be, you have to be really on top of this game to make sure he was ready to go, but he's getting reimbursed for it. So that's all I have to say. I don't have anything else to say. I've said my piece. So, anybody else? Aaron, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think so. I went back into the breakdown of expenses. The patio ends up being the rear patio with installation concrete and patio privacy wall. So if you look at that whole back area, it's about 13,600 of the entire project. And if that were to come out, it does take about 10,000 off of the funding of the total project that would be awarded by the village. It still accounts for close to almost 50% of the total annual budget of the facade program. I think it desperately, the front needs that work. So I agree. The front looks fantastic. I'd like us to maybe think through whether that back patio would be included. And I think to the point that all of you made, we haven't even hit the new fiscal year yet, and to allocate or potentially ask to allocate 50% of the budget before knowing if there would be potential throughout the year additional projects may just put us in a situation late next year to say, hey, we don't have any funding, but let's wait till the next budget. And that may be okay. We may have to go to businesses now to say, hey, we're getting interest in the facade program, speak now or forever hold your peace this fiscal year. Right. I don't know, just something to think through. I think the project itself looks great. I'm not sure about the back patio part of it, but I think the rest of the project looks great.
Okay, awesome. Any other thoughts, Suze?
Well, I'm all for improvements, and since we approved the guy over there, like you say, we've set a precedent, which bothers me.
So everyone we approved for the back, was that at a lower percentage?
Well, we'd have to go back and look.
Meaning, was that the reason?
It was,
If you
no,
did
no,
award less?
like 25%
Right,
versus 75.
75%.
I thought you guys ended up not recommending the rear of the doctor's office, but maybe
I remember we discussed it quite lengthy.
It was a 42 vote.
And I do remember the view from the, I've got Chuck's coming up.
The reason why I say that is maybe we can lean on precedent. If I recall, I believe it was a lower percentage based on the back.
I suspect that you're going on ground though now. This is not a facade, this is patio and a fence. I mean, just the definition of facade, to me.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, in the rear yard as well, there's also the staining of the brick and the visit from the guys doing the staining work. I don't think it's split out in the front and the rear, but just for what it's worth to bring that up. Here is the,
Hey, Bill, why are you talking about staining brick? Did the copper barrel, was that brick treated in some way or is
Yeah,
that natural?
yes.
It was stained?
it was stained to match the new brick that was put where all the window openings used to be.
It was like a light beige before, like.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was standing there looking right at, touching it. I couldn't tell that it was stained. I guess I'm not a mason for sure, but
Well, and the property at Roy's place, that was 100% stained,
really,
Yeah, the entire,
the whole building.
yeah.
Mike wants to do something on the front village hall with a tiny little brick in the bottom. Get your opinion on that.
So something to think about for the future, and when we're talking about the facade program overall, is maybe to help us avoid the, the questions of could there be future projects, could there not be future projects? Maybe we look at instituting a submission by date for consideration in the fiscal year.
I think that's a good.
And that every year it's okay, here's what we've gotten. And then if there's leftover funds throughout the year, great, we can figure it, but then at least you're considering everything all together.
Yeah, that was a conversation we had at length, Aaron, originally, and we decided not to do that. I don't remember when, but I think
Probably just
there's,
so you can have it available if you need it.
I think there's definitely merit to it. Maybe you send them a couple dates.
I mean, last year it turned out that way because you had all three of them on the same day.
Exactly.
This year it could have, but
Right,
Be quarterly.
or something like
Once a
that.
quarter.
Yeah. No, I think that then gives the committee at least a chance to look at multiple projects, Why not so fresh cookies?
No, I.
I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I had to put that in there.
that's what homemade is, what I heard.
So, yes, I'm bringing Italian pasta next time. I really eat well. I'm nowhere Kelly, but okay, so I guess at this point, I think our discussions have been had.
Yeah.
So I would be open to entertaining a motion. Who's creative enough to craft one. And then we'll have a little bit of discussion and see if the group is in favor of that motion. And if not, we can look at a different motion.
Are you ready to make a motion on the whole thing? Are we gonna adjust this?
I think the motion actually has to, that's part of the motion, is you motion to break it up, you motion to approve it all, you motion.
Move to kind of certain percentage or certain dollar.
Yeah,
amount. Would be the right
Well,
move.
move is-
Do we have because I think this came up in a previous discussion, do we have the ability to make a motion to include pieces of an application, or is it the whole application or not?
Well,
I thought it was you had to either make a motion for the application, not like what pieces you wanted to do.
So I guess my only thought is in principle, we have the ability to deny it, partially fund it, blah, 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 but
But keeping in mind that you're making a recommendation, so you can recommend anything.
yeah, fundamentally, okay, that's a better way. to look at it. So, and then their board.
And the reason why I ask, Ryan, is I wonder if the motion is to table to have the applicant resubmit without the patio, if that's the feeling of the BDC, so that if the rule is you have to either accept it as written or not, rather than declining, do you then give them an opportunity based on this discussion to amend? Or can we recommend an amended project? I don't know the rule.
I don't know that we've ever come up against a rule.
Well, yeah, not specifically like that, but you have, people have asked for 75 and you give them 50 and then
Yeah.
they went to the village board and the board overrode you a couple times.
Was not happy about that, but.
Well, you were on the board. I think.
Oh, I was.
Um,
I'm not happy about myself.
So I think you could, Aaron, do that without violating the rules. But that's a matter of choice, I think.
Yeah.
As chairman.
And if we're wrong, I mean, the village board could come and scold us or whatever, give us, in all seriousness, we could get a letter of whatever. But I think
Josh, you know the language in the program as well as anybody. Do you see anything that would prohibit amended recommendation?
No, there's nothing that would prohibit it. And furthermore, these are not rules that are established by ordinance or anything. They're just guidelines, and the village board and the BDC, it's what you wanted to follow, but you have the authority in your own right to, change it if it was something you didn't want to do. So it's not like it's an ordinance that you have to follow.
Okay.
Again, just-
Thank you though, Aaron. I think that clarification was important. That was a good question. And I know he wants to get moving, and I think that's, you know, to me is the most important thing is I want him to get.
I agree.
Sure. So, yeah, I'm open to, a motion, so.
Planning.
Can I ask the group, are you feeling aligned to the 75% request? Like take the different aspects of the project out, but the overall 75 versus 50 versus whatever percentage. How's everybody feeling on the 75% request?
Okay, I'm just gonna say my spiel. I think, I have no problem with 75% because I think it's going to really help the downtown area.
Yes.
I now, after listening to Ryan and discussing the whole thing of the back patio, have no problem taking the back patio out of the bid and still approving everything else. So that's where my head's at right now.
And that's where my head is at as well.
And just as a aside to that, I think you could consider the staining of the brick still facade and not ground, so you could separate that if you wanted to stain the brick on the back.
Yeah.
Just the
How expensive that
$9,000
is.
part, which is the stamped concrete.
And communicating to him that, he could certainly apply again, right? And I think that, you know, part of my concern is really a timing thing more than anything. I do appreciate the fact that you brought up the other two projects, and of course I've forgotten about it. But
And not that this has any bearing on, I don't think, our decision-making, but because the issue or question of timing has been raised, they did make it clear in terms of the project that they intend, from what I recall, to move forward with the outside patio at the same time as the rest of the work. And the reason being, it's gonna offer and provide a good portion of seating, maybe even as much as there is inside after they put the facilities, whenever they're installing bar, whatever it is. That the seating out front, though limited, and the seating, especially in the back, provides a good portion that they're gonna need right off the bat, they anticipate. So just for what it's worth in terms of timing, it sounds as if they intend to move forward with it either way.
I appreciate that.
And Copperboro came to us after, right?
After they've done the work.
Right.
But that was a very specific reason that we allowed for that.
Yeah,
And
I'm just.
So no, you're right. And we've had other people come to us who have done work in the past, like Incredible Builders, I think. That was a St. Patrick's Day, I'll never forget. Where I was with my mom told me she looked at me. But so we do have a precedent of going forward, it does need to be approved ahead of time. I believe that is if in Josh, I mean, but to Josh's point, I mean, I guess we can make that change, but typically we do.
That's one thing you've been pretty strict about.
We've been pretty strict.
But for this.
It's fundamentally.
You'll find out if he needs the money or not, if he goes out with the patio, or if he comes back a month later and applies for another grant.
I'm so conflicted.
Yeah, I mean, I'll make a motion to approve the application for 124 South State Street at 75% reimbursement for everything excluding the patio. The fence.
If we could calculate a dollar amount and make that part of the motion, I think that'd be.
I can do that.
Did you have that number, Andy?
I got it here for you.
Yeah.
That's just to clarify too, for the patio, are you including the fence for the patio? Because that was a separate line item as well.
Yes.
Okay, so both of those items excluded.
So with both of those excluded, I came to a total project of 63,924. And then you said 75% of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
43,000, 42.
47,943.
We could incorporate that as part of your motion, Dave.
Okay. So I will make a motion to approve the facade improvement grant for 124 South State Street in the amount of $47,943,
Which excludes,
which excludes the patio and fence from the application.
Can I get a second on that motion?
Second.
Okay, are there any questions or comments? Okay, at this point, Dave, if you could call the roll. Okay. Since we're approving money, we need to call the roll.
Commissioner Kovacs,
Yes.
Commissioner Krajewski,
Aye.
Commissioner Schwallow,
Aye.
Trustee Kelly,
Aye.
Commissioner Vizlato, aye. Motion passes.
All right, thank you, Bill. I think I didn't mention, but I do always like to mention, you do phenomenal work.
Yeah,
Thank you
you
for
do.
the time that you invest in the coaching and the guidance that you give to our applicants. This program would be nowhere near where it is today without it. We appreciate it. And please, I hope, as you convey this to the homeowner, whoever does convey it, that we are 100% behind the project.
Oh, yeah.
These are technicalities that we feel is important in our service, so.
this will be brought before the board next Thursday night, so we'll encourage Brown sure to be.
Yeah.
And any of you who'd like to participate in person or online, you're welcome.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. I appreciate the tone of the conversation. That was respectful and I think well done as usual. Okay, moving on, just quickly, we've got Hampshire's very own list of remaining companies. O'Reilly Dental, as I was hoping to have had done by now, but I have not seen it from.
Which dental is that?
It's right on 72. across
Oh,
from-
okay. I've been meaning to say all night until it comes up. The dentist on North State. On the last
Oh, right,
building
right, right.
on North State on
Oh.
the east
All
side.
right.
I haven't seen a car there for like 2 years. I finally saw somebody. I went in there, Josh and I went in and spoke to him. He's closing May 1st. That building will be for sale.
Yeah.
So I think Josh and I now have a complete inventory of every building down on State Street. And they're all either listed for sale or rent. And, a year ago, none of them. So I think we're starting to,
See.
you guys are really making progress with the side grant program. Great.
Good.
In the first couple of years, we didn't spend all the money, if you remember.
I do.
The last 2 years.
Well, I mean, I'm excited, so.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so, and then Chicken Dip, RK Services and Kruger Accounting are the directions, but RK Services, I think, is still in question, because it can do that.
Well,
You
it's
did.
part of Roy's
It's part of
place.
Roy's,
It's
we're
Roy's
good.
place. It's the same owner, but
We do separate.
We haven't.
Okay. I know we talked about that.
We also added Iron Walk back to.
oh, that's right.
We did, yeah.
So Jay, what's going on?
Yeah, what else we got going on, Mr. Hedges?
Oh, man. I started making a list and I just quit trying. I'll start with the big one. No update on Project Yukon. I haven't heard of Keep in about a month now. So
And what is that again?
that was the big $1.5 million logistics facility. It was going to be on the Shireland property.
Got it.
And it still hasn't gone anywhere. The broker that's representing Yukon, Project Yukon, says it's still alive. And so my guess is that they probably decided, and now they're deciding whether or not they should go forward with the project at all. They had somebody out doing soil borings and surveying the site, and they had to sign up. I know that the landowner wouldn't let them on the property until they had a contingent contract. But they may have done that in both communities. It probably cost some Smyrna's money. So my assumption is that they decided between the two communities, but now they're deciding whether to go forward with the project at all. So that's the big one. We have, it's been a couple months since I've been here, so we have Vista Trucking, 50,000 square foot building. Josh
mentioned that, yeah.
So they'll be breaking ground really soon. I think was that last night, Josh?
Yes, they had their concept review approved last night by planning and zoning.
Yeah. And now there's another logistics company, 100,000 square feet. That is represented by a different broker who I introduced to the current developer of the logistics part. Mike Gazzola is out of it now. Mike Gazzola is just the broker who's representing the seller of the land, who's Tim Flanagan, and the buyer of the land. And he has an investor, and this is a company called New World. It's buying the whole park. So to buy the whole park and then immediately turn around and sell it to Vista. And then now it looks like they're gonna have another 100,000 square foot building, another logistics company. So logistics is just, I mean, there's a whole paradigm shift in logistics because of COVID, because of just the world of logistics is changing.
Yeah.
It's hard to
Are
describe.
all of these on 20 between 90 and,
Yeah, we're keeping all the trucks and all the traffic on the north side of 20, and on the north side of the toll line. Now, I had a meeting this week with the biofuels company. That's moving along. It's still gonna be a very slow process. It'll probably be a year from now before they're even close to breaking ground. So that, I expect them to come before the village board sometime this summer, when they get a little further along in their application. As you know, it's a very environmentally positive project, but it does include a lot of trucks and a lot of semis full of garbage. So that there are two sides to that coin. So they kind of would like to stay anonymous and not be visible until they really have everything in line. So that's the other big one. I'm trying to think. I think that's, well, on Romkey 72, the 40-acre parcel. There's an institution in town that's very close to signing a deal there for the land. That will trigger the, I know they've agreed on price and everything. They're just working on some details now. That will trigger the recapture agreement. Crown will get paid their amount for the land. And I do know that the developer is anxious to go ahead. I thought they might sit on it until they actually had somebody ready to build. But they said, no, they want to close as soon as they can because that Crown recapture agreement is prime plus 1%. So it's probably 6 or 7% right now. So they don't want to pay interest any longer than they have to. And the sale of the proceeds of the sale to the institution will generate enough money to buy the land or to pay the recapture agreement as this project was created in the first place.
what institution is in Hampshire?
Use your imagination.
Is it for the entire property?
What's that?
Is it for all 40 acres?
So,
Is it all for all 40 acres?
no, in fact, this institution, which was at one time gonna go in the corner, they've not planned to move to the back, so they're gonna buy the whole back. Which will give them a retention pond and some green area. And also so that the owner of the property, the developer doesn't have to retain that. And I think I told you at one of the previous meetings, he's been talking to McDonald's and he has pretty good connections. The builder has good connections. He's built a lot of restaurants, fast foods and car dealerships around.
So are there any plans for the front?
Yes, so the front right now, the tentative plan is for potentially a car dealership from somewhere to go in the corner. And then there'll be 2 additional commercial lots. So we'll still have the full 16-acre frontage is commercial. And the corner will probably be the car dealership when that moves forward. And then he's looking for pretty much any kind of
Like a strip mall
restaurants.
or
Yeah, I think he hasn't, I don't think he envisions a strip mall. I think he envisions an individual buildings.
Same.
But I think he was talking to a car wash at one time, and I think fast food for the most part. That's about all I can think of right. Oh, we have a company an individual interested in a sportsman's. All these sports things are coming for open land. I got a call this week again about that cricket field we talked about a year ago, I think. I told you about that. So he's interested again in the same property up on Allen Road near Trees Unlimited. And then last week we had a call from a gentleman who lives near town and he wants to open up a sportsman's shooting range, 70-acre shooting range, outdoors. And so we're trying to find a place where that could be located without disturbing residences. And there's state laws about being 1,000 feet from schools and all, but 1,000 feet isn't very far when you're shooting weapons.
Yeah.
Probably more of like a land mass is gonna have to be somewhere
north.
yeah, well, we talked a little bit about Briar Hill East, because that development over there has some land back in it that's not very developable. So I connected them with the Briar Hill Ventures people and see if they can find a place. So that's, I mean, there's just a lot of prospects out there, but those are the ones that are the most real.
5 years ago,
Yeah.
we were sitting at that table being like, what can we do to get the phone to ring?
That's right.
Well, I told you guys this before. I sat at the same table with you the first couple of meetings and I thought, well, this could be a real challenge. But then when I started driving around town, I don't even think I knew the truck stops were in Hampshire when I took this job. In fact, I know I didn't. And then Hampshire Woods North is building. We have one freight company that just finished last year. if you drive up Gas Road on your way home, Susie, you'll see the grading again at,
Yep. Saw it today.
no, I can't even remember the name of it now. So that's another logistics company. And then, so I will add that we talked here about the Dr. Jafari property that's immediately north of Pet Ag. That is now being planned. That's owned by Tim Flanagan. No, I'm sorry, it's being purchased by Northern Builders, who built Pet Ag. And so they will be, they actually, there were two people sort of had options on it, and they ended up with it. So Matt Grosecki, who is the nephew of the owner of Northern Builders, is working on his application now, his development application. So that's 63 acres. He has one prospect, but otherwise he's just going to build a spec building. So I think they'll be in the ground a year from now too.
Wow.
So that park has 2 small lots and then the 63 acres on the west available.
It's amazing.
Well, we have to thank you, Jay, because
Yes.
before you came, our village was in need of a manager. So-
Well, I don't think I've brought any business to town. What we've been doing is managing what's been coming at us. And that's what's really happened is our time has come, and the good news is we were ready when it came.
Mission accomplished.
That's great.
And I couldn't do it without JW up there either. He's really been a great.
And so I'm gonna call you from now on.
I kind of like that.
JW.
It makes it sound really important, J-Dub.
Interestingly,
Let's check with Jay Dunn.
What's up, J-Dub?
all of my nieces and nephews call me Jay because they couldn't call me Joshua when they were young. So I'm Uncle Jay.
All right, does anyone have anything else they want to contribute to the meeting? Okay. Well, then, at this point, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Oh, Susie,
Although,
Go for it.
And
Susie got it.
You were throbbing first, though, Aaron. We saw you throbbing, but we didn't hear you right away.
So,
Or should I say?
at this point, are there any questions or comments about the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adjourning the meeting, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? You're crazy. Motion passes.
You all have a